everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the second video in my last minute exam tips series. I've put together a little 3-video series just to help you with that final hurdle of getting through your exams. And let's be honest, if you're going to procrastinate, let it be some useful procrastination. Now, while the other 2 videos in the series are about general tips and advice, and also some tips and advice for if you already feel relatively confident and relatively ready, this video is going to be aimed at those of you who might be in a little bit of a panic right now because you don't feel ready, you don't feel you have prepared enough, which is fine, no judgment here, we've definitely been there, I know I certainly have. But nevertheless, you are in the situation and you want to make the best out of what you've got left. So, this video is for you, my friend. We don't have time to lose, so I'm going to get straight into it, but the other 2 videos, alongside some other useful tips and nuggets and links, will all be down below. So check those out if you've got the time. Let's get straight into it. Number 1, make a strategic plan with the limited time that you have left. Now, this was also my first point in the general advice video, but what I want to do is elaborate on that point, and by all means watch that video if you want more details, but I want to elaborate on it in this part of the video and say that it doesn't matter how unprepared you are, you still have some time left and some capacity to get information down. So let's just remember that we can make the best of what we've got, even if what we have is not as much as we'd like to. And by setting yourself a strategic and very personalized plan, and as I said, I go into more detail in my other video, you will really be able to kind of concentrate your energy and time. And hopefully make sure that the little revision that you do have time to do is efficient revision. Number 2 is test your recall even if you don't feel confident fully answering any of the questions. I know at some point we've all been in that situation where we may open up an exam paper, have a look and think, oh my god, I genuinely cannot answer any of these questions. And even if you're in that situation, write down whatever comes to mind. You might be given an exam question that asks you to write a paragraph, and even if you can muster writing down 3 words or 1 sentence, whatever it is, just put it down on paper. Now, to give you a practical piece of advice that I think is extremely useful in these situations, is when you get a question, and as I said, if you write down whatever comes to mind, let's say the question asks you to describe the full process of photosynthesis and all you can think of is sunlight, green leaves and chloroplasts. Write down those 3 words and make sure you write it down in, let's say, a black pen. Then mark yourself, and when you mark yourself, you don't need to write down the full process, because if you didn't know it, it's going to be very difficult for you to just bombard yourself with a paragraph of information, especially if you're doing this for multiple questions. So, what I would recommend in this situation is, let's say you've written down green leaves, chloroplasts and sunlight. In a different coloured pen, when you mark your questions, add 3 more words relevant to answering the question. Just 3 more. And now this way, you now have 6 words that will help you answer that question. And learning 3 more words in addition to the 3 that you already knew that could help you answer this question is far better than knowing none, and also it's better than trying to memorize and bombard yourself with a huge paragraph. Now, the point that I'm trying to make by giving you this piece of advice is that although this might not be the most effective way of revision, generally, when you have a very limited amount of time, you really want to squeeze every last drop out of what you already know. So although you might still not be able to answer the question fully, you might be able to get yourself 1 or 2 marks, which quite frankly is better than nothing at all if you leave that question blank. Number 3, which relates nicely back to our last point of trying to get the most out of the time you have, is make a hierarchy of the information. What I mean by this is, let's say you're trying to learn a topic, or let's say you are trying to learn a concept. Put the main picture, the big picture, the most important part from the whole module or for the whole concept at the top of your paper. Then from the big picture, write down 2 concepts, 2 of the most important concepts that fits into that big picture. And below those 2 concepts, write down 2 descriptions for each. Very briefly, it doesn't have to be a lot. And then from those 2 descriptions, give each of those 2 minor details. Now, essentially what you have done is made a very large module or a very large topic into a very simple kind of diagram or web that you can follow. It might not have all of the details that you need, it might not have all of the concepts, but as long as you've got the big picture, a few concepts and a few details, that might be just enough for you to gain a couple of marks in answering that question. And what you can do is, instead of focusing on the details of lots of things that you aren't going to have enough time to revise for, you can create these little skeletons for yourself for a handful of topics. And that way, when you get into the exam, as long as you remember this structure, you can find the way to talk around it. And as I said, even if you might not be able to get the full answer, you'll still be able to get something. Number 4, and this is a favorite of mine, and that is to study out loud. Not only is this important because by talking out loud, you also engage different parts of your brain that will help you remember, but also, let's be honest, if you're short for time, talking things out loud and maybe practicing in front of a mirror, I know it sounds like really cringy, but practicing in front of a mirror or even filming yourself recalling all of the information will cut out the time it takes to write everything down. And at this point, time is key. I would personally recommend that you flick through lots of questions and you try and answer it out loud with the mark scheme next to you. If you say it out loud and you say things correctly, tick the points that you got correct and highlight the points that you missed, and just go through like this systematically to try and remember as much as you can in the time you've got left. Number 5 is have a chat to people about the content either on the morning of your exam or the night before. Now this sounds a little bit silly, but let's be honest, have you guys ever had that experience where you're just having a casual chat and your friend mentions something, a question or a topic, and lo and behold, that comes up in the exam, and because your friend has said it to you and they've said it to you recently, you're like, oh, like this is what they were talking about. Oh, I see, I can write that down. I know that one's a bit of a silly one, but come on. Any tips and advice that we can take at this point, we can try and grab onto and make the most of it. Number 6 is stop at some point. I know it sounds a bit counterintuitive because you might be thinking, well, you know, I have so much to do, I'm in a panic, I need to prepare as much as I can, but there needs to come a time where you think, okay, this is what I've done, this is as much as I can get done in this time. Let's not get myself worked up over it, because there is a line where you can use your stress and anxiety to push you forward, but beyond that it stops being useful and it starts to lead to your decline. So I would say, let's say it is 10 o'clock the night before the exam and you've spent the whole day cramming and revising and doing as much as you can. Don't do an all-nighter. I know it's tempting to, but at some point just stop. Maybe listen to some music, maybe watch a movie, and then sleep. And in the morning, just do the best you can. Number 7, and this is something I briefly touched on the last point, is that make sure that if you aren't progressing, that you aren't letting yourself decline. Again, I just want to emphasize on the fact that I appreciate how difficult and how stressed you might be if you do find yourself in this situation, but beating yourself up and getting yourself even more worked up than you might already feel isn't going to help you. So I think at this point there is a certain level of acceptance that you might just have to think, well, this is just how it is, I just have to do what I can and let this be a lesson for next time to try and get myself more prepared. And I know I'm getting to the point where I'm giving less advice and more comfort, but honestly, you're not a bad person, you're not a bad student, we've all been there, and just keep your head up high and go for it. Now, if you enjoyed this video, guys, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to see the other 2 videos in this series about general tips and advice, and also if you feel somewhat prepared, but you just want that one last big push, make sure to check out the description for further links, useful nuggets, and, you know, general other tips and videos and advice that you might enjoy. As always, my lovelies, thank you very much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already and press the little bell icon to keep receiving notifications every time I upload a video. I wish you all of the best, and until next time, take care and I'll see you later.